Fadi, Steve, want to thank both of you for joining us here at the conclusion of the ICANN 46 meeting here in Beijing. Steve, let's start with you. The big news that came out of this meeting occurred during the public forum, specifically the GAC Communicate. What's the reaction to the GAC Communicate?
As you said, the GAC Communique kind of arrived in the middle of the public forum, which means that the GAC was working very, very hard late into the evening before and again assiduously all during the day on Thursday to prepare it, and as you said, it arrived. There's quite a bit of content in it. They cover a number of points. We've been working closely with the GAC over a period of time to develop a process to make sure that each and every one of the points in their communiques is dealt with clarity. So we take each of the items in there and we make sure that we understand it and we iterate, echo it back, and then we go through each one of the items carefully. And depending upon how complicated it is or what issues it raises, it may take longer or shorter, but we want quite a bit of visibility. So we have a so-called GAC register in which each item is posted and is visible to everybody and goes through a series of phases, all of which has been worked out in a constructive fashion with them. There's a GAC advice regarding treatment of names in the that have been applied for, strings that have been applied for, and there's a certain amount of texture and substance to it. Some smaller number of saying, we have specific advice on these names, and then broader advice about categories and so forth. There are interesting issues in both cases that have to be dealt with, and it would be inappropriate for me to go too far on the spot, but we're going to be quite thorough about it.
Yeah, and I'd like to add that we heard very clearly yesterday in the public forum that the community wishes to participate in the discussion about the GAC Communique. And so alongside the staff analysis that is starting right now on the GAC Communique, we have decided to put the GAC Communique out for public comment, soliciting the entire community to give us their input to ensure that the GAC Communique is taken seriously, but also our response encompasses the views of the whole community.
Steve, GAC Advice is just that, it's advice, but it is the governments of the world talking to ICANN. So how much weight does that carry?
GAC Communique and more generally advice from governments carries quite a bit of weight, and equally it is not the end of the story. We have a carefully constructed multi-stakeholder process. We want very much to listen to governments, and we also want to make sure that there's a balance. The way our bylaws are structured puts a preference, if you will, toward following advice from the GAC, but not an absolute requirement, and lays out a process that if we choose not to follow the GAC's advice, we have to go through first an extended consultation process, and then at the end of the day, if we finally are not in agreement and haven't been able to find a common resolution, then we'd have to document quite carefully and be prepared for the next phase of that, which will be the government's expressing their displeasure, and so there's a bit of a balancing act there.
Fadi, you're going to post the RAA for public comment. In doing so, are you going to lose the ground that you've gained?
I believe putting the last version of the Registrar Accreditation Agreement for the year 2013 out for full public comment process is actually strengthening that agreement. It's what makes it an agreement of the community to manage how our registrars do their work and to support the registrars in delivering the best possible service to the registrants. We have reached an agreement in principle during the Beijing meeting. We're very appreciative of the hard work the registrars put to make that happen. We are finalizing the language with them, and we hope that no later than mid-next week we will publish the full agreement. We will also accompany publishing this agreement for the public to comment on with a series of activities, webinars and the like, to brief the community on what's in the agreement and engage them and make sure we hear them as we finalize this new and very important agreement that includes some true new breakthroughs in the state of the relationship between ICANN and its community and the registrars. This will raise the profile of our work globally, and we're very pleased it got completed here in Beijing.
That's the registrars. Where are you with the registry agreement?
Well, like many things, contagion is a good thing. In this case, a very good thing. And the advances we made with the registrars have really created new energy in our work with the registries. We have done very, very well here in Beijing, multiple sessions, very frank, very intense. And I'm very happy to share with you this, at this moment that we are very, very close with the registries as well. And my expectation is that within less than a week, we will have agreement in principle and we'll move forward, just like with the RAA, we'll move forward with a public comment period on the registries. Now, many registries are concerned that this public comment period could delay the whole GTLD program. I'm here to give you an assurance that while we will include the community in deciding that this is a good agreement for all of us, we will also do our very best operationally to keep the program on the most agile, fast clip to get everything ready and ensure the minimum amount of impact in delay on the program.
So what I'm hearing from you is inclusion doesn't necessarily equate to delay.
In this case, it won't, simply because we have some agility and flexibility on the operational side. For example, the next step after contracting was the pre-delegation test, to ensure that these new GTLDs have all the technical capabilities on the ready to serve their registrants and certainly their registrars. Now, we could potentially do something about advancing this step ahead of contracting, finding a way to start pre-delegation testing before the final contract is done. We're looking at all these possibilities now. My commitment is to clarity and visibility of the timeline of the program. Many resources and a lot of people are looking for clarity in the timeline so they can get their work done. We're committed to that and we'll make that happen as early as we can next week.
Fadi, let's talk about the Beijing Engagement Center. That was big news here this week. But talk to me about opening a center like that in a country that frequently makes headlines for internet censorship or internet monitoring.
Let me be clear. We cannot tie the policies of a country on content to our responsibility to ensure that all the citizens in all the countries of the world have the full access to our capabilities and policy making processes so they can participate in them. So I am focused with the ICANN board and the ICANN staff on engaging with China at every level. We will lean into this great society with its great vibrant economy, with its 560 million internet users, growing by 40-50 million per year. This is not a community we can walk away from. This is a community we need to be at the heart of. And I must tell you, what happened in Beijing this week is quite remarkable for the ICANN community. We have been brought by China into the inner, most important parts of how China makes policy and how China embraces international organizations. We are part of that now. And I think how we were treated in China, where we were invited in the Great Hall of the People, are subtle but important symbols of the new friendship between ICANN and China. The Engagement Center is just an example of how we're engaging with China. It's yet another way for us to be on the ground, to be engaged with government, society, businesses, in order to make sure that our global policies are part of the fabric of the new emerging China.
Steve, when we interviewed you after the Toronto meeting, you pointed to Fadi's emphasis on internationalization as a priority, as a good thing. At a board level, how are you feeling about our progress in that direction?
The initial move in that direction had to do with Africa. We followed up with the Arab region and moving rapidly in the Latin American, Caribbean region and the Asia area. The first couple of meetings that were held, the so-called MIG meetings, first in Dubai and then in Addis Ababa, back to back, were both extremely successful, brought key players from both regions together, created quite a bit of energy and forward motion. The things that we were looking forward to, you asked about in terms of Toronto, are now, in some sense, yesterday's news. I mean, we're making them happen. The more recent activity with the Registry Agreement, the Registrar Agreements, have occupied quite a lot of time in the last few weeks, and putting that in place. And there's a tremendous amount of forward progress across all fronts and a lot of energy.
What's your biggest takeaway from the Beijing meeting?
As Fadi said, China is vibrant. China is large fraction of the total internet population and is growing. It's evident from being here that the Chinese economy is very active. This is an expanding, positive, confident community here. That they don't appear to be boisterous or presumptuous, but they are confident and deservedly so.
Fadi, same question. Your biggest takeaway from the Beijing meeting?
I felt the momentum of ICANN at this meeting. A great forward momentum. And it's not just momentum in staff or at the board or in some parts of the community. I must say, we have a newfound momentum, and it's a great momentum. I think it will propel ICANN forward in the next period. I also leave this meeting with some worry about how we're going to embrace a growing global ICANN within our current structures. We have a lot of work to do. We saw the largest meeting in ICANN's history, and I think that's just the beginning. As our engagement activities embrace the globe and reach out of Los Angeles to the world, I see a lot of movement into the ICANN community. We need to start thinking how we prepare for that and how we make sure that we are prepared for the interest in ICANN's great work.
It sounds like you're talking about systemic changes.
Some of these may be systemic, but the community must get engaged in that. And therefore, I launched on my first day in Beijing the conversation about ICANN's 5-year strategy that we are starting right now. And I encourage everyone listening to us here to go on myicann.org and file their thoughts, their ideas. Start participating. Where do we take ICANN? We need to get ready. The momentum is pulling us into great places, but we have to also be ready to embrace the world.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.